into the future as they possibly can imagine. It almost feels too big. Sometimes it can feel scary. Some people, if somebody walks them through that biggest vision they've ever had for themselves, it can make them sick to their stomachs even, because it's so big and so audacious, and there's almost like a, do I deserve that? Kind of question mark going on. High achievers are willing to go there. They're willing to think, okay, what's the absolute biggest that this could become someday? And then those people are going to back it down into small, tangible goals for today. Because if you have a goal to, if I had a goal to be a PGA player, I wouldn't go enter into the biggest competition possible today. I'd probably hire a trainer and start with the small stuff. And I'd maybe practice a few times a week, and I just work on my swing and getting my posture right, and doing those kind of things, and then practice, and then play with better players, right? I would start small. If you guys are if you're talking about your real estate business, you may think, some of you may be individual agents, some of you may have a team, some of you may have just started. I mean, you are all across the board. Think about the absolute biggest that you can imagine it right now, which, by the way, for me, when I first started at Keller Williams, my first goal was to sell $3 million in real estate. Just $3 million, right? That was as big as I could imagine at that time. And then somebody put me in bold, and all of a sudden it became 100 transactions, right? And that got bigger. Now it's even bigger. Over time, your vision can get bigger depending on how you've grown, but you still have to back it down into tangible goals that you can do, or tangible things that you can do day in and day out. That leads me to a really, really important piece of information that I think a lot of us miss. Like we really, really miss it. I mean, sometimes coaches miss it, sometimes leaders miss it, sometimes we just miss it in general. Is the second part of a mindset of a high achiever is they understand that the process is more important than the results. Have you guys ever hyper-focused on a result while you were working on something and felt the same exact way that I have, where you start beating yourself up on day 1 or day 2 or day 47,000, and you're just going, why can I not get to this result? I mean, it can be everything. It can be Bill's golf swing. It can be someone's weight loss or weight gain. It can be your saving your money, your financial goals. And you're sitting there going, why do I not already have blank, 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 and blank? And I had an interesting conversation with someone on my team. Both of our health is really important to us, and we both gained the COVID-19. That's a pun, get it? Right? And instead of saying, okay, we want to lose a certain amount of weight, one of the things that we agreed upon, because this is the mindset of a high achiever, is we decided that the first week together, our only job was tracking. That's it. Eat whatever the heck you want. Just track. Put it into a system, track it. Because that's a habit, right? That is part of the process. The process is always more important than the results. And I cannot tell you guys how many realtors I've talked to that go, I'm going to take a listing this week. Cool. What are they missing? The process. So what are you going to do in order to take the listing? And it's a very fine line between loving your job and hating your job as a realtor, if you will either focus on the results or on the process. Because if you'll start judging whether you did a good job or not based on whether you kept your schedule, you contacted the right number of people, you studied the scripts, you said the right thing, and if you didn't hit your goal, then maybe you need to talk to more people, or maybe you need to get better at what you're saying. That's the process. If I could go out and if I could just shout a message to every single realtor out there who's having a tough week this week, and just say, if you'll stop judging yourself on whether you took the listing or took the buyer or wrote the offer or not, and start judging whether you had a great week based on did you do the activities, I think we could change the morale and the results of this entire organization.
Yep.
Another part of the mindset of a high achiever, and by the way, that second one, I mean, if you guys tuned out for the rest of this meeting, I'd be okay, honestly. That second one, that process is more important than the results. I can't tell you how many people I've trained for that and transformed their world. Bill, that if anybody looks at Bill's production and how he's done, that was one of the first things we worked on, wasn't it, Bill?
Yeah, the 15 contacts. We narrowed it down to 15 contacts a day.
Mm-hmm. And how many calls did we have? How many minutes did we spend just going over? So how many contacts did you make? How did they go? What went right? What went wrong? Blah, 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 blah. I mean, it can start to sound like really repetitive and really like, oh God, we're having the same conversation again. But how many months was it before you finally like went, whoa, it worked? I can't remember. Was it 4 months?
It was like 90 days. It was like, we had $6 million in buyers lined up.
And he was like, I gotta cut back on my contacts. I was like, no, you're not. What we did worked. So you gotta keep going. You gotta keep going. Don't let go. Right. And you can't get cocky either, right? You're like, oh, look what I created. And I got all this business now. Okay, well, you got to keep doing what got you the results if you want to keep going. Otherwise, you just find yourself in that up and down, right? And by the way, we all get cocky. We're like, yeah, we did a great job. Yeah, this is awesome. I'm awesome. And now I'm all busy and I don't need to do these basic things anymore. No, unfortunately, we have to do the basic things to keep going. Number 3, in the mindset of a high achiever, is a high achiever understands energy and they focus on what they can control. Has anybody felt stressed in the past couple of months? Not this group. You guys are perfect, right? Yeah. You ever noticed when you're really, really stressed, that anxiety is welling up and you're having a hard time controlling those emotions? Have you ever noticed that you're actually thinking about something you have no control over?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Outcome that may not ever even happen. So.
Oh my gosh, how many times have we been so, I mean, I think that somebody's done the math. I'm sure it's totally accurate, like every other statistic in the world. And I think somebody said like 99% of our problems that we worry about never even come to fruition. Right? Energy is so valuable. If you want to give back to the world, if you want to be successful, you're going to have to give back to the world because we're human beings on this planet together. And so if you want some version of success, it's going to have to come from some version of contribution. And if you're going to give back and give contribution, then you're going to have to be your best self. And being your best self is not sitting in a corner in the fetal position worrying. And we've all been there, okay? I'm not shaming anyone. I've been there. Those first 2 weeks of whatever you want to call this thing, I was a wreck. There are still days where I'm a wreck, right? And then I have to remember, what am I focusing on? Where is my energy going? And what can I actually control? So you guys tell me, what can you control?
My daily activities.
You can control what you do.
Yep. Your mindset.
Your mindset. That seems easier than it actually is. I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. You can control it, but there are days where it doesn't feel like it's possible. But I'll talk about that in just a minute too.
My schedule.
Your schedule. Most of the time, right? You've got kids too. You and I have talked about that, and kids can throw a wrench in schedules, but you can manage it probably 85 to 90% of the time. We can manage it. right? What else? What else can you guys control?
You can control your attitude
Our attitude.
and your reactions to certain things.
Yeah.
Your second thought.
Second thought. I love that. I love that. Can't control the first thought. It might be programmed in there for 30, 40, 50 years of programming. You can control the second thought. I love it. What about the people you surround yourself with? Some of you need to limit the time you're spending around someone you love, and that sucks. I know. Or just change the conversation, right? You can change what you're listening to, what you're reading. Did you know you even have control over what shows up in your Facebook feed?
Yeah.
There's this like hide, turn off notifications, and block buttons. Those are my fave. Right? So if you understand energy, we're still talking about focusing on what you can control, you understand the philosophy that what you focus on expands. And that is a bold law. And it comes from the philosophy that that's in quantum physics and neurolinguistic programming, that your conscious mind and your subconscious mind are working together at all times. Whatever you're thinking about, talking about, reading about, liking on Facebook, sharing, reading more of, blah, 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 all of those things are in your conscious mind. You're aware that you're doing them. Your subconscious mind goes, man, Sherry really loves this. Okay, so if Sherry just spent the last day and a half reading all of the things that are going wrong in the world, whether she likes it or not consciously, her subconscious mind goes, man, she really loves to hear about devastation and sadness and anger. And she just loves it. I mean, she just keeps filling us with it. So she must love it. I'll help her find more tomorrow. The only way that Sherry's going to get out of the rut she's about to create is to interrupt that pattern and change what she's reading, change what she's talking about, change what she's listening to, and start unfollowing some people on social media. And tell Facebook, I don't want this. I want something else. I found that the people that high achievers surround themselves with, they actually do not love to be surrounded by people who just agree with them all the time. It's actually, Mark Cuban talks about this being the millionaire or the billionaire's worst fear, is being surrounded by all yes men and women. Because if you are surrounded by only people who agree with you, how tunnel vision do we get? And the highest of achievers know that they're not the smartest person in the room. They might be the loudest, they might be the strongest willed, they might have the biggest personality. They're not the smartest. And they make mistakes. They want to be surrounded by people who will challenge that style of thinking so that they're not stuck in a tunnel vision. And I talked a little bit about reading. Learning, reading, etc. are so important for that, the mindset of a high achiever, because that further perpetuates what you are telling your subconscious mind you want to focus on. So if you're focusing on things that are positive, self-growth, reflecting in the mirror, empathy, like all of these things that we need as leaders, then you're focusing on the right things and you're telling your subconscious mind, I want more of this. And I wrote down something that I actually have this printed out, and it's on my computer, like taped to it. And it's one of my my favorite things to remind myself of. Because when you understand energy, you understand time and how valuable your time is. And the quote that I have written down is, the great equalizer of all humanity is time. You guys, I don't have any more hours in the day. We all have the same number of hours, the same number of minutes, the same number of seconds. So the great equalizer of all humanity is that we have the exact same number of hours in a day. That message sitting on my computer reminds me to say, am I doing the most valuable thing that I can in this moment? Am I wasting time? Am I spending time in somewhere that I really shouldn't, that's not healthy for me or for somebody else? Should I spend my time elsewhere? And that actually leads me into number 4. In the mindset of a high achiever is constantly asking themselves, am I performing in my highest hourly rate and or my highest level of impact? I think the two things go hand in hand. When you have more impact, you tend to make more money. It's a byproduct. My belief, which you do not have to adopt, is that money is an energy. So when we put that at certain energy or the correct energy out into the world, the money will come back to us one way or another. And hourly rate is so incredibly important to me that periodically I will go back and I'll review what's on my calendar and I'll check my hourly rate based on, you've got to have at least 6 months of doing something to really understand its hourly rate. I mean, ask Bill, he was making 15 contacts a day before he just started to get, started to feel busy. There were days that he goes, this is not working. I'm like, keep doing it. You're not there yet. Keep doing it, right? And then now he's had plenty of time where he could go back and figure out his hourly rate for that activity. Plenty of time. But sometimes when you're doing something like that, you've got to look at your hourly rate and your impact. And as you grow your business, I had somebody ask me in a training event once, because, we teach leads, listings, leverage, and listings lead to more leverage and blah, blah, blah. And it had really irked this woman to her core that everybody on that panel was talking about how they took listings and no buyers anymore. And she said, for the life of me, I just can't understand why you don't like buyers. I love buyers. Are you kidding me? I got into this business because I love people. I love buyers. At some point, though, when I was growing my business, I had made a commitment to other people that I would be operating at my highest and best to create opportunity for them. And when you have other people looking to you to do your best, I have to pick the absolute highest rate per hour and the highest impact for the rest of the team. Because you see, growing a team, sometimes people think they might have some funky ideas about growing a team and a big is bad or whatever. I don't care. I'm not judging your judgments one way or the other. But when you start growing a team, that's actually when you must become selfless. Who cares if I like working with buyers or not? I have a duty to the team now to take a certain number of listings and to hire the right people and to build the right systems, et cetera, to grow them. And I wrote down in this category that we have to understand as high achievers that complacency is selfish. If you've ever woken up like I have, I'm admitting to you guys so that you can go down this journey with me, right? Admitting to you all my faults while I'm telling you that, where the good stuff came from. But at a certain point in time, you look around and you go, I'm making enough. So I'm just going to let off the gas. Seems innocent. Seems fine. But there's somebody in your world that's counting on you that you let down every time you take your foot off the gas pedal. I'm not saying don't take a rest, okay? I'm a big fan of taking a rest. I'm actually in the middle of a 60-day rest right now, as you can tell by my public speaking. It's more of a rest than what I was doing before. I'll just say that. I am a fan of understanding when you need to take a rest and a pause and reflect and gain composure and figure out where to go from there. It's when we go, I'm making enough. I don't want this to be any bigger. That's when I have to look at you and go, but what about all the people you influence? whether they're working under you or not. Complacency is selfish because you're saying, I have enough, but I don't care if anybody else has enough. I numbered this incorrectly, so I'm having to like count my stuff because I added something in afterwards. Number 5 for the mindset of a high achiever is that high achievers ask a ton of questions. I can always tell when somebody is still in the early stages. I'm not going to judge because we all are on the spectrum somewhere, right? And I can always tell when they're still budding as a leader and still working on things when they've got it all figured out. Sherry, do you have it all figured out? Okay, just checking. The more we grow, the more we realize we don't know. And I think this year has been a really awesome year for giving a lot of us some perspective on how little we knew. We may have been confident in February. There went that. Now we're all humbled. Now we're all on an even playing field of holy moly, what do we do now, right? And I think the best of leaders come in curious. They ask a lot of questions and they're humble. And the reason I think that people get to a certain level is because of how curious they are. So if you're at a stage in your business where you say, like, I wish I was achieving more, start asking more questions. I would love it for you to go shadow somebody who's a high achiever and just ask a ton of questions. Listen to how they think, listen to what they read, listen to whatever their worst struggles were. God, you can learn so much in what people's worst struggles were. And usually it's so funny that they really want to share, because if they're over like the emotional crisis of it, they're ready to share and they're ready to laugh about it. I've got plenty. You guys don't have enough time today for all my screw ups and laughter. I mean, we'd have to probably have a glass of wine or something and go over that. But leaders ask a ton of questions and they study their competitors, their peers, people in other industries. They study them and they ask a ton of questions. And I think, and another thing that I added under there is leaders work diligently to see things objectively. We all have opinions. We all have biases. Every single one of us. You can't help that. That's part of who you are. You, like we said earlier, you can't control the first thought. You can control the second thought. Well, if you're curious and you come in asking questions and you stay in that high achiever mindset of I don't know everything, you can get a lot further in life and in your relationships with people just by staying curious. Number 6, this one's kind of deep for me, and I think that high achievers understand the difference between themselves and their thoughts and beliefs. That might have gone over some heads, okay? And that's okay. But one of my core beliefs, and again, you don't have to adopt all of mine, is that we are a spiritual being on a physical journey here. And so the high achiever understands the difference between themselves at their core and then all of their thoughts, their beliefs, their fears, their everything. And when you understand this about yourselves, you will understand it about other people. Because if you have empathy for yourself and you understand that I am not my angry or jealous thoughts, I am not my fearful thoughts, I am not the really crappy behavior that I exhibited yesterday when I was really upset about something. Or, for those of you who love boating, maybe you're backing the boat into the or putting the boat on the trailer and you snapped at your spouse or something like that, right? I am not that moment. I am human. And whenever we will have that empathy for ourselves, right, everything starts with self-leadership. So if you will give yourself that grace, you can turn around and give it to others. And if you're going to be a high performer, a leader in your community, no matter whether it's in your religious community, in your financial way of life, in your business way of life, and any portion of your life, if you want to be a leader, it's going to start with understanding that humanity comes first. And the very last thing that I want to share with you today is the mindset. Part of the mindset of a high achiever is that they have a sense of humor. They don't take it too seriously. And I'll just for kicks and giggles, I'll tell you guys my like the funniest thing that's happened to me this week. And I really pride myself in my hiring skills. I have some amazing people. I love finding the right people to work inside of my organization. And I had an interview yesterday morning, and and if you're on my social media, you've already seen it. But in the middle of the interview, apparently, I told this person they should come and visit the farm, but not to come anytime soon because I was really embarrassed of my weed garden. It's actually a garden that's overwhelmed with weeds, right? I didn't pick it up. I didn't realize what I'd said for 8 hours. I went home. I'm sitting there reviewing my day. I was like, oh my God, I told him that I have a weed garden. He's going to either report me to the cops or he's going to show up expecting something different than what's actually happening at the farm. Guys, and then it took me a whole other hour to realize and remember, he's a cop. It's not legal in Georgia, right? I could not stop laughing. And I finally called him. It was I'm mortified. And he said, it's okay. I thought about reporting you to the sheriff's department, but he said, I thought that would be one hell of a way to follow up with a first interview. And guys, we are here. This is our life. And we only have one life to live, and you should enjoy your career, and you should not take yourself too seriously, and you've got to have fun with it. And I put my foot in my mouth all the time. And that was just the funniest one. I laughed until I cried yesterday. I was mortified, but I couldn't stop laughing. I'm like, of course, this is the guy I tell that I have a weed garden to. I told him, don't be excited. If you do come and visit the farm, the only grass we have is fescue, and it's for the horses. It's not going to be what you thought. So with that, you've got to have a sense of humor. And there's been a time where I've taken myself entirely too seriously. And when you start making it a priority to laugh and surround yourself with other people who are having fun at this, and replacing the time with the things that you don't enjoy with the things that you do enjoy, you're going to be better at your job. Because if you're laughing and having a great time and you're enjoying it, people know that. That's an infectious kind of energy. And we talked about energy earlier. And when you absolutely love what you do, people are going to hire you left and right because they just like being around you. And with that, that is all I have to share today. I'm open to questions, not about my garden, about anything else that you guys would like to talk about. And glad I could see a few smiles there through that. But God, it cracked me up.
On the lines of the weed garden comment, I think it's also important to be open to other forms, sources of income.
Hey,
Thanks, Buck.
as long as it's legal, right?
Just gotta think creatively.
Oh, guys, I'll never live that down. If I hire this guy, if he gets into business with us, we'd be lucky because he's just amazing. But God, I will never live this down. They're never going to shut up about this.
So, Brittany, I'm just curious how you were able to pivot when we went into COVID. What did you go through, and from the beginning till now, and what were the results?
Yeah.
Good, bad, indifferent.
There's a lot of things I've screwed up in leadership, like massively. That's where we learn a lot of these lessons. But I think I did a really good job. This was one of the times I was really proud of what I did. And I go back to the number 2 and the number 3 on the list that I gave you guys, and focusing on what you control, focusing on your energy, and understanding that the process is more important than the results. So I have a team of 8 people as of right now. And the number one thing that I knew they must be feeling similar to how I was feeling, or they would go through it at some point. So I knew more than anything, I had to get control of their mind. We had to get to where we were in a good energy space, and I didn't have to control their whole day. I didn't have to micromanage them or anything like that, but we had to get control of that energy. And so I quickly discovered, and I really was just remembering that the number one way that we start to feel better about ourselves is when we let go of what's going on inside of us and we start to give to somebody else. So what we started to do very immediately was, I want you to call a certain number of people in your database. You can start with your favorite people. I don't care, whatever. I mean, I don't care if you're calling your mom. I don't care. But the first thing I want you to do is call them and just say, how are you? Are you okay? Is there anything I can do for you? Right? It was really simple. It was not hard scripts, but we were just checking on people. I really didn't care if there was a real estate conversation at all. Not at all. I understood that I had to get my people's energy captured, and that we had to keep them, if they were going to watch the news, they were going to, there was no avoiding the rest of the day, but if I could capture them for a certain amount of time during the day and say, go love on people. And I had them get up and get a shower and get dressed. I didn't care if they were doing the Scott and wearing, shorts and a t-shirt and whatever. I didn't care what they looked like, but I wanted to see their faces. And we got on Zoom, and we would do these calls together, and then we would report how we felt afterwards. We actually took the most listings ever during that time. We pended from the time that our area shut down to the time that it opened. We pended 22 contracts in that 11 weeks. It was insane. And I don't credit it to some massive form of lead generation. I credit it to the fact that we kept their vibration high, their energy high, and kept them serving other people. Because when you get lost in that funk, it's hard to see opportunity because you're so stuck in the rut, right? But if you can keep that energy high, even if the last conversation I had was with Sherry, just to check in on her and love on her, well, then when a lead comes in, I'm going to be at a higher energy to follow up with that person and be in a good space to follow up with them, rather than, I've been depressed before. I've had anxiety attacks before. When you're in that space and a lead comes in, I don't care. I feel like the world's caving in. I don't want to talk to those people. Who cares if they need to buy a house, right? So getting their mindset right was number one. And then we did some things, like we offered in June here, we did if you list with us in June, we'll do lawn care. It was a $100 credit for lawn care or something like that. It was our listing agent's idea. She listed 12 homes last month. She did a really good job. And I really put it back. They know the right things to do, right? They know the context, they know the follow-up, they know our CRM, they know all of that. But I think my first and foremost job right now is to keep their energy and their thoughts in opportunity and in abundance. And it has really paid off,
Hey, Brittany, I got a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
So was it intentional that when you were talking about the kind of the numbers that you were going through, the first thing you said was, did I keep my schedule? do you deliberately give that precedence over the rest of the stuff on the list? Or I thought that was interesting. Lots of people don't ever point out how important the schedule is.
The schedule is everything.
Yeah.
And some people love a very specific time block, and then other people prefer this word called a daily rhythm. I don't care what you call it, right? But if you will decide what a perfect day for you looks like, you can get a lot of help from that in MREA, in the energy plan. You can get it from the One Thing. You can get it from the book Miracle Morning, or you can just write your own. But what gives you the highest energy, and making sure that you get all of your priorities done before 11 o'clock every day. And when you do that, gosh, it makes life so much easier. If you feel like collapsing and the world is falling apart, and it may not even be pandemic related, you might be taking care of a sick family member. You might have, health issues of your own, and you're worrying about a diagnosis coming in, and whether your treatment is working and whatever else is going on in your life. If you can control your day up to 11 a.m. with the highest energy you possibly can, you can dominate whatever you want in life. You don't have to control anything else except for up to 11 o'clock.
I love that. Would you call it a rhythm?
Yeah, a daily rhythm. Some people they don't want to go like, oh, from 9 o'clock till 9:15, I'm going to do this. But instead they go, okay, these things take approximately this much time. So I'm going to make sure I stretch and I journal and I eat a good breakfast. And then I'm going to get to the office and I'm going to make sure that I do my lead gen. But it all has to be done by a certain time. But some people just prefer it. It just depends on their personality. Some people really like rigid, and some people like it to feel more organic. Choose your words and the way that you structure it based on that is all.
I love that, because I think a lot of times we hear that if you're not following the 9 to 11 model, that you're out of system with Keller, and you're not doing it, you're bad. So I love that, because it is about the rhythm and getting what you need to get done before 11. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
What other questions do you guys have? Sherry, we see you talking, but we can't hear you.
Sherry's muted.
It's animated. Keep going. It's so good.
So on a totally different note, though, you shared that you competed with your horses. So they jumpers, quarter. What do you do? Tell me a little bit about that.
I ride dressage, and for most horse people, that is the most.
Yes.
Dressage is one of the hardest, but for other people that are non-horsey people, it is the most boring thing in the whole wide world to watch. Because you're like, what are they? I mean, they're walking or trotting. Is there something special happening here? What are they doing? It's incredibly difficult. But I actually raise Lipizans, which are an endangered breed from Austria, and they are my loves. That's part of the reason why I still sell real estate, is so I can afford the horses.
They're the big fancy white ones, right? They're like prance.
Yes.
Yeah.
Prancy white horses. Yep.
Yeah.
I'm impressed. That's awesome.
They're fun.
Anyone else have any questions? No? Brittany, this was awesome. It was really good. I got a page full of notes, so I'm excited.
I love teaching. So anytime you guys want to have me back, I really enjoy it. Like, I'm on cloud 9 right now, having gotten to talk to you guys and laugh with you and tell you my most recent fun stuff. And I'm here for you. And if there's other market centers that you think would benefit from this kind of training, let me know. It is free. Again, this is part of my 20%. I love doing it, and it's free for our Keller Williams offices. So. That's awesome. Well, good luck with the weed farm. And I think on behalf of all KWP, thanks for taking time with us today. It was really beneficial. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Brittany.
Thank you.
All right, that's it for us, guys.
That was awesome. Thanks.
What's that? Oh, did somebody say something? No? Good. I appreciate all you guys. We'll be in touch. Yeah, heads up. Keep moving forward. You guys are doing awesome. Numbers look great. So we'll connect in 2 weeks. Thanks.
Thank you.